You planted flowers this spring. You watered them, fed them, and by mid-July your garden was already bare. That is not a gardening failure. That is simply the wrong plants. There are 13 perennials that bloom for 4, 5, 6, even 7 months straight. One is still flowering in December. Another blooms better when you stop feeding it completely. And the one at number 1. Most American gardeners have never grown it, never heard of it, and never knew it existed. These plants cost you once and bloom for 10, 15, even 30 years. No constant replanting. No breaking your back every spring. No wasting hundreds of dollars on annuals that die in a month. Once these settle in, they take care of themselves season after season. Every plant on this list earned its place. Minimum 3 months of bloom, minimal care after the first season, real color that makes your neighbors stop and look. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a video. Number 13 is balloon flower. Platycodon grandiflorus. Before the flower opens, the bud inflates like a small balloon, rounded, tight, almost translucent. Then it pops open into a perfect star-shaped bloom. Children are fascinated. Adults stop dead in their tracks. It blooms from July through September in true deep violet blue, soft white, and dusty pink. That blue matters. True blue is one of the rarest colors in the perennial garden, and balloon flower delivers it reliably every season. Zones 3 through 8. Sentimental blue stays compact at 8 inches for containers or a front border edge. Astra blue reaches 18 inches for a more substantial presence. The detail that trips up almost every first-time grower. This plant comes up extremely late in spring. While everything else leaves out in April, balloon flower may show no sign of life until late May or even June. Many gardeners assume it didn't survive winter and dig up the spot, destroying a perfectly healthy plant that was simply taking its time. Mark every planting with a stake in fall and do not touch that spot until you see growth, no matter how late it appears. And once planted, leave it permanently. It never needs dividing, and it gets stronger every single year. Number 12 is hardy geranium, and the first thing to say clearly is that this plant has nothing to do with the red pelargoniums in plastic flats outside every hardware store. Those are annuals with a borrowed name. Hardy geraniums are true perennials, tough, long-lived, completely different in character. The petals carry fine, delicate veining that makes each bloom look individually painted. Colors run from rich violet blue to deep magenta pink and clean white. May through October, 6 full months, in zones 4 through 9. Roseanne is the standard, violet blue with a white center, blooming from late spring until hard frost, perennial plant of the year. If you plant only one hardy geranium, plant Roseanne. The growing tip most gardeners miss. In midsummer, when plants look tired and sprawling, cut them back by half. Within 2 weeks, fresh compact growth pushes up from the base. Within 3 weeks, full bloom returns for a second flush into fall. Skip this and you spend the back half of summer looking at a faded, messy plant when you could have had a second round of full color. Hardy geraniums also perform genuinely well in partial shade, as little as 3 to 4 hours of direct light per day. For the millions of American gardeners dealing with mature tree canopy, that is not a small thing. Number 11 is Russian sage Perovskia atroplicifolia. Picture 4 feet of silver-white stems covered so completely in lavender blue flowers that the whole plant shimmers in summer heat. There is nothing else in the American perennial garden that creates this effect. July through October, zones 4 through 9. It thrives in the exact conditions that defeat most other plants: hot slopes, sandy soil, gravel beds, poor drainage along driveways. Rich, moist soil actually weakens this plant and dramatically reduces flowering. The most important growing detail is the spring cutback. Every year, before new growth begins, cut the entire plant to 6 inches from the ground. Russian sage blooms exclusively on new wood. Skip that cutback and you get a woody, disappointing plant that never reaches its potential. It is also one of the most deer-repellent plants available. The leaves release a sharp herbal fragrance that deer find completely intolerable. For gardeners dealing with serious deer pressure, that trait alone makes this plant worth every inch it occupies. Number 10 is purple coneflower Echinacea purpurea. a true American native that evolved on the North American prairie. It is not adapting to our climate. It grew up in it. That is why it performs so reliably across such a broad range of American growing conditions. Zones 3 through 9, the widest coverage of any plant on this list. Broad, slightly drooping purple petals surround a raised copper-orange central cone. June through October, 5 full months. Magnus for extra-large flowers on sturdy stems. Cheyenne Spirit for red, orange, yellow, cream, and pink, all from the same seed mix. White Swan for pure white petals against a copper cone. Kim's knee-high at 24 inches for smaller beds. Here is the tip that contradicts everything most gardeners instinctively want to do. Do not deadhead purple coneflower. Leave every spent bloom standing through fall and into winter. The seed heads are a critical food source for American goldfinches. On a cold January morning you can watch 8 or 10 of them clinging to those dried cones. That is not a neglected garden. That is an intentional wildlife garden. Number 9 is blanket flower gaillardia. The most accurate description is a permanent sunset growing in your garden. Deep burgundy red, burnt orange, and bright gold appearing simultaneously on a single bloom. June through the first hard frost, 5 months of warm color, no pauses, no interruptions. A North American native, perfectly calibrated for our heat and drought. The most counterintuitive fact, it blooms better in poor soil. Lean, dry, sandy, even gravelly ground produces the most spectacular flowering. Rich, fertilized soil does the opposite. It pushes lush foliage and almost no flowers. Planted in your worst spot, skip the fertilizer entirely, and watch what happens. Arizona Sun is compact at 12 inches, red petals tipped gold, an All-America Selections winner. Goblin is the classic bicolor in red and yellow, reliable in zones 3 through 10. Enia. And blanket flower self-seeds enthusiastically. Plants appear in your gravel, between paving stones, at path edges. Every one of those is a free plant. Number 8 is Catmint nepeta, one of the most consistently underrated perennials in American horticulture. A 2-foot mound of soft silver-green foliage covered so completely in lavender-blue flower spikes that the individual leaves nearly disappear beneath them. From across the yard, catmint in full bloom looks like a cloud that settled gently into your garden. That is not an exaggeration. Late spring through fall, 6 full months, but only if you do one specific thing in midsummer. Around late June, cut the entire plant back by half. New growth emerges within 10 days. Full bloom returns within 3 weeks. That single action is the difference between 6 months of color and 3. Gardeners who do this once never skip it again. Walker's Low is the most reliable variety, 24 to 30 inches. Six Hills Giant reaches 36 for a more dramatic border anchor. Junior Walker stays at 18 for containers or tight front positions. Zones 3 through 8, completely ignored by deer and rabbits, drought-tolerant after its first season. Plant it along a path and the clean, minty fragrance becomes part of the daily experience of being outside. Here is something to consider as we move into the top 7. Most American gardeners design their yards around what looks good in April and May. By August, those same yards are tired and essentially finished. What would your garden look like if you planned it specifically around what performs when everyone else's yard has already given up? Asterisk. Number 7 is Coral Bells Huchera. Most people think of it as a flowering plant. The flowers are genuine, small bell-shaped blooms on slender stems from May through August, and hummingbirds are strongly attracted to them. But the foliage is the real reason to grow it, and it delivers visual interest every single day of the growing season. In most American zones, it remains evergreen through winter. The color range is remarkable. Obsidian and black beauty for deep near-black burgundy. Caramel for warm amber and honey tones that catch afternoon light. Lime Ricky for electric lime green that reads almost luminous in a shaded bed. Palace purple, rich mahogany foliage with a metallic overlay, tough, reliable, and beautiful across a wide range of conditions. Zones 4 through 9, performing well with as little as 2 to 4 hours of direct sun per day. For gardeners dealing with heavy tree canopy or north-facing beds, Coral bells are one of the only perennials that deliver real sustained color in those conditions. One practical note for zones 5 and 6, freeze-thaw cycles can push the crown up out of the soil in winter. Press it firmly back down in early spring. It is not struggling, it is completely normal Heuchera behavior. Address it immediately and the plant performs beautifully all season. Number 6 is Penstemon beardtongue, and if hummingbirds visit your yard, this plant will bring more of them than almost anything else you can grow. The tubular flower shape evolved specifically alongside the hummingbird, shaped over thousands of years to match the bird's bill length and feeding angle perfectly. These two were made for each other by the American landscape itself. June through October on tall vertical spikes, 18 to 36 inches. Each spike opens progressively from the bottom upward, so a single stem stays in active bloom for weeks. Husker red, deep burgundy foliage with white to pale pink flowers, dramatic contrast that holds from June through fall. Dark towers, similar with slightly deeper pink and extremely sturdy stems. Midnight masquerade, deep purple foliage paired with bright pink-purple flowers, one of the most visually striking penstemons available. Zones 3 through 8, native to the American West and Great Plains. Fertilizing regularly shortens its life. Lean, well-drained ground produces the longest-lived, most floriferous plants. Give it drainage, give it sun, and leave it alone. Number 5 is Astilbe, and this plant solves one of the most frustrating problems in American gardening: deep, persistent shade under mature trees, along north-facing fences, beside structures that block afternoon light. Most long-blooming perennials demand 6 hours of direct sun. Astilbe delivers months of genuine color with 2 to 4 hours. For shaded gardens, it occupies a category nearly by itself. Feathery plumes, soft, cloud-like, almost translucent at the tips, rising above deeply cut fern-like foliage from May through August. Fennel for deep raspberry red. Montgomery for bright cherry red. Bressingham Beauty for warm salmon pink. Bridal Veil for pure clean white. Amethyst for soft lavender. Plant 2 or 3 varieties with staggered bloom times to extend the display across the full May through August window rather than one concentrated burst. Zones 3 through 8. The honest trade-off: this plant needs consistent moisture. Unlike most plants on this list, it will not handle drought well. In hot, dry July and August stretches, it needs regular deep watering or a thick layer of mulch over the root zone. Every other plant on this list is more drought tolerant. Astilbe earns its place through shade performance and sheer visual beauty, and for the right spot, that trade-off is absolutely worth making. Number 4 is garden phlox paniculata, and the fragrance alone is reason enough to grow it. On a warm July evening, with the air still and the light going golden, garden phlox produces a scent that is sweet, clean, and carries across the yard without any effort on your part. Plant it near a patio, a porch, or an open bedroom window and it becomes part of the experience of being outside on a summer evening. The flowers form dome-shaped clusters up to 6 inches across, dozens of small florets packed into one solid mass of color. Deep purples, vivid pinks, soft lavender, brilliant white, bicolors with contrasting center eyes. In full bloom, the top of the plant disappears entirely beneath the cluster. July through September, zones 4 through 8. Older varieties are prone to powdery mildew in the humidity common across the American South, Midwest, and Mid-Atlantic. The solution is variety selection and spacing, not spraying. David is the white variety most worth growing. Exceptional fragrance, outstanding mildew resistance, perennial plant of the year. Laura produces purple flowers with a white star center and very strong disease resistance. Shortwood is bright pink, compact, and one of the most reliable mid-size phlox across American zones. As a cut flower, garden phlox is exceptional. Bring a stem indoors and it will scent an entire room within the hour. Number 3 is hardy verbena, and the single most important fact is the bloom duration. 7 months. From May through November, hardy verbena produces clusters of small flowers in such relentless abundance that the foliage beneath nearly disappears under the color. No other plant on this list blooms longer. Plants stay low, rarely above 12 inches, and spread by trailing stems that root naturally wherever they touch soil. A mature planting reads as a solid carpet of color. Homestead purple is the defining variety, deep violet purple, spreading 3 to 4 feet, blooming from spring through fall without interruption. One of the most reliably long-blooming plants available at any price point, and still underplanted in most of the country. A true perennial in zones 6 through 10. In zones 5 and colder, treat it as a long-season annual. 5 to 6 months of non-stop color still make it one of the highest value plants you can put in the ground. Cascades beautifully over retaining walls, fills between stepping stones, covers hot dry slopes where mowing is difficult. Fully deer-resistant, drought-tolerant after its first season. Number 2 is Lantana, and it does something nothing else on this list does. The individual flowers within each cluster change color as they age. A single flower head carries yellow, orange, and deep red blooms simultaneously, each at a different stage of development. White shifts progressively to pink, then to soft lavender. Multiple colors, one cluster, completely natural, requiring nothing from you to produce it. Spring through the first frost across most American zones. In zones 8 through 10, the Gulf Coast, Florida, Southern California, coastal Texas, Arizona, it blooms nearly year-round and develops into a substantial woody perennial shrub. The heat performance is worth stating clearly. Lantana does not merely tolerate high temperatures, it performs better as they rise. Through the heat domes that regularly push across the American South and Southwest in July and August, Lantana keeps flowering at full intensity when surrounding plants have slowed or stopped. Butterflies are intensely attracted to it. Deer find it completely repellent. For zones 7 and colder, Lantana does not survive outdoors through winter. Treat it as an annual, or bring container plants indoors before first frost. 5 to 6 months of non-stop color and zero deer damage still make it worth every dollar. And now, number 1. Mexican Mint Marigold, Tagetes lucida, and the reason it sits at the top of this list is simple. Every other plant here blooms through summer and into early fall. This one is just getting started when the rest of your garden is finished. It blooms from August through December. When American gardens are going quiet in October, when your neighbors are putting their tools away and calling the season done, this plant is producing masses of small, brilliant golden yellow flowers on a shrub 2 to 3 feet tall. In November, when everything around it has faded to tan and brown, a Mexican Mint Marigold in full bloom is genuinely startling. Crush a leaf and the scent is pure anise. Across the American Southwest and in traditional Mexican cooking, it substitutes directly for French tarragon. The flowers are edible, added to salads, used as garnish, or dried as a natural color substitute for saffron. The late-season wildlife value is specific. By October, most nectar sources in American gardens have shut down. Monarch butterflies on their fall migration are actively searching for food. Mexican Mint Marigold is one of the most valuable late-season resources you can provide for those populations at precisely the moment when almost no other plant is still producing. True perennial in zones 8 through 11. In zones 6 and 7, start transplants indoors 8 weeks before your last frost date. The bloom season running from August through December justifies every bit of that extra effort. 5 strategies that can genuinely double your bloom time. First, know what to deadhead and what to leave. Deadheading works powerfully on salvias, catmint, phlox, and verbena. But purple coneflower, lantana, and Penstemon seed heads should be left standing through winter to feed goldfinches and overwintering birds. Second, fertilize lean. Half-strength slow-release fertilizer once in early spring is sufficient for most of these plants. Blanket flower, Russian sage, lantana, and Penstemon should never be fertilized. Rich soil reduces their flowering. Third, water deeply and infrequently. Once or twice per week drives roots 12 to 18 inches into the soil. Shallow daily watering produces shallow roots that fail the moment summer heat becomes serious. Water in early morning. Fourth, succession plant within the same family. Early, mid-season, and late varieties extend a single plant family's presence from one burst into a 4-month relay. This works across echinacea, astilbe, phlox, and salvia. Fifth, learn your microclimates. Your USDA zone tells you the average annual minimum temperature. It does not tell you what happens against your south-facing brick wall or in the frost pocket at the bottom of your slope. Learning the microclimates within your own property produces dramatically better results from every plant you grow. For layout, Russian sage and garden phlox at the back at 4 feet. Purple coneflower, Penstemon, blanket flower, and catmint in the middle. Coral bells, balloon flower, verbena, and hardy geranium at the front edge. In shade beds, Astilbe in the middle with coral bells and hardy geranium flanking both sides. The seasonal relay runs from catmint, hardy geranium, coral bells, and Astilbe in spring, through purple coneflower, blanket flower, Penstemon, and verbena in early summer, into lantana, garden phlox, and balloon flower at the height of the season, and finally Russian sage and Mexican Mint Marigold closing the year through November and December. That is a garden that is never empty, never bare, never finished before you are ready for it to be. 15 years from now, your coneflowers will still be blooming. Your catmint will still be fragrant along the walk. Your Mexican Mint Marigold will still be the last bright thing standing in November when every other yard on your street has gone quiet for the season. Share this with one gardening friend today. Subscribe and hit the bell. And drop the name of your favorite plant from this list in the comments right now. You have just seen 13 perennials that bloom longer, cost less over time, and demand far less from your body than anything sold in flats at a garden center every spring. Most American gardeners spend decades replanting the same short-lived flowers in the same spots, spending the same money, doing the same work, and getting the same results. Now that you know these 13 exist, what has been stopping you from gardening this way all along?